What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Great show for you today on Gojo and Golic. No senior because he's getting shoulder surgery. We will talk about that, but here's what you have to look forward to on today's show. Luka came out against the Mavs and showed them what was up. We will break down his game against his former team, plus combing the combine, okay? We'll bring you the best stories and sound that we have so far, and we have some amazing guests today. Smetana, Jordan Reid, and Nate Tice all joining the program. Stay tuned. It's going to be a fun one.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr. and Jesse Cofield here. We got a great show for you guys. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review us. Leave us a 5-star rating and watch us here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. Hit the bell, subscribe over at the YouTube channel, and make sure you're subscribed to the podcast for the next couple of days. A little bit of house business here. As Jesse mentioned, we got a lot of moving parts right now. My dad is, at this moment, getting checked in for shoulder surgery. He's excited to get that thing replaced as he has ground that one down between football and now bad golf to dust in order to go and make that happen. So he is there, happy as a clam, ready to go and do his thing. He's excited about this. Like, Jesse, at this point, the other shoulder, the normal human shoulder that he's got, it's like the end of a road trip when you know you got to go to the bathroom and the intensity just starts to go. This thing, or better yet, the comparison I used with him yesterday, this is like when a new iPhone comes out and all of a sudden your old one, battery life's gone to hell now. The memory seems terrible. They flipped the switch in the factory. The factories hit the switch on Dad's current shoulder, and so now he's got to get the shiny new metal one.
Wait, current shoulder is his OG shoulder, correct? He hasn't had this done
yes,
before.
OG shoulder.
Okay, OG shoulder. Okay, so like you said, it's just years and years of wear and tear. This is pretty routine, right? I mean, they've got this down to a science, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we're good at replacing limbs, which is insane because it seems like it's the entire thing that they take out of there. So it is by no means like a simple, quick surgery, but it is one that there's a well-worn path of here, and one that he better get used to because he's got quite a few limbs that are going to get replaced over the course of the next however many years. But either way, here's and good luck to Dad. Hopefully everything goes well.
How's your dad as a patient, by the way?
So my dad is I guess is it outpatient or inpatient? I always forget if it's like the opposite thing where the one means you're in and one means you're leaving. But either way, as a patient, like inside the facility, Dad's great. The difficulty with my dad, someone who, again, 9 years in the NFL, the joke for a long time on Mike and Mike in the Morning was being a football player for almost a decade in the NFL also kind of makes you a doctor because you go through so many injuries, you learn so much about your own body that you're kind of used to, all right, when this happens to me, this is generally the rehab process, this is generally what we go through to get through with this. And so at times it can make my dad a little bit stubborn when it comes to the recovery post-operation. Case in point, my dad, if you watch him walk at all, we call him the rookie of the year in our house because when my dad had knee procedures done earlier in his life, he did not take the rehab as seriously as he needed to. And so now he doesn't have one leg that extends all the way completely. His knee won't lock all the way out, which makes his walking gait hilarious, but makes him run like a gazelle. If you've seen that man in an Orange Theory class, he's moving. So that's why we call him the rookie of the year. And so that's going to be the challenge of seeing if we can keep him on the straight and narrow when it comes to his rehab. Thankfully, he's got a great group of people through the NFL's Players Trust out there in Scottsdale that should be able to get him right on that and make sure he does the things that he needs to do. So best of luck to Dad this morning. We hope that all goes well. I'm still holding out hope that they have just walked into that room and presented him with the Winter Soldier arm, and we're going to come back with an even cooler story and a bionic dad. We'll wait and see on that one. As Jesse mentioned, we've got a different show coming up here today, and Dad obviously going to be sitting out the next couple days. I'm going to be traveling to the NFL Combine today after the show and going to be there doing some work for the next couple of days as well, which I'll point you guys to on social. So in the meantime, we will not have the live show on Thursday and Friday, but stay tuned to the podcast feed here. Down in Indy, I'm going to get to talk to a bunch of the Combine players. I'm going to be kind of whispering, listening, and hearing what's going on with everything, put my ear to the street down in Indianapolis where the information superhighway that ends up governing the NFL's offseason usually takes place. And so we will have shorter podcasts up for you guys, True Blue podcast, taking it back to the streets, up on Thursday and on Friday, checking in from Indianapolis, giving you the information you need there. So again, we always appreciate those of you that watch the show and subscribe to the Gojo and Golic YouTube channel. We also appreciate those of you that have been kicking it with us as an audio product going all the way back to just the straight Gojo days. And so if you have missed that and harken back for simpler times are on their way. I might try and see if I can pull in a guest or two with a lot of my friends who are going to be out there at the NFL Combine, a couple of whom we will hear from coming up today. As Jesse mentioned, Jordan Reid, ESPN NFL draft analyst, Nate Tice, Yahoo Sports football analyst, and draft extraordinaire, going to join us in the second hour here. So will be fun to catch up with those guys and talk about all that. But that's just the housekeeping for the next couple of days here. Before we dive into a show that's going to have the exact bit of drama that we expected last night in Los Angeles, Jesse, to quote Stefan from Saturday Night Live, this game had everything. From stare downs, Luka Doncic and his former general manager, Nico Harrison, who I actually understand why he was on State Street, bright blue suit out in the open, watching Luka Doncic warm up before the Lakers game. Because he didn't have to worry about getting booed or any FU Nico signs here. There might have been one or two rogue Dallas Mavericks fans that made their way to L.A. But this man's a conquering hero in the city of Los Angeles for gift wrapping them Luka Doncic. I saw Kofi on Twitter last night tweet during the game where a guy like Austin Reeves was balling out. How was he not a part of this trade package? All of it just sort of a reminder that the Lakers were really able to get Luka Doncic for, obviously, Anthony Davis, who, congratulations to him, got his due last night, got to enjoy a poignant moment with the crowd. They played the tribute video for someone that had been sort of lost in the shuffle of what had gone on last night. This Kyrie Irving-led Dallas Mavericks team going up against Luka Doncic, and that's how it was billed, and not as much Anthony Davis, former Los Angeles Laker and champion, albeit from the bubble season. I know people like to slander that, but that man put a banner up in Staples. I'm not calling it crypto, not even if there's a fire. And so him coming back, you could see the emotion for him, the emotion for people in the crowd. He was a guy that also had to be surprised by this, got the rug pulled out from under him. But Anthony Davis didn't play last night in a 107-99 win for the Los Angeles Lakers that got out to a roaring start for them, that got tense and close in the last two quarters of this game and turned into some really exciting action. The story was about Luka Doncic and how he would play against his old team and everyone navigating the complex emotions that come with that. And Luka played a great game. Had a triple-double, became the first Laker since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to record 15 or more points, 15 or more rebounds, 10 or more assists, along with 2+ steals and 2+ blocks in a game. The defensive effort, noteworthy for Luka Doncic and the Lakers overall. We talked to Zach Harper yesterday about the Lakers' renewed defensive effort and how, hey, LeBron may be a little bit longer in the tooth, but in the fourth quarter, and this is a big theme of the game, able to turn it on. Because as we look at the effects of Luka Doncic on the Lakers side, I think that's a big one of them. Certainly, Austin Reeves, Lakers fans have been well aware with what an incredible offensive season he's been having in a Laker uniform. Yes, concerns about his defensive abilities, but no questions about what he can do offensively. 20 points in this game, including 3 of 8 from beyond the three-point arc, and the ability to initiate and take over in his own right. But Luka Doncic being able to come up and be the straw that stirs the drink, be the guy we saw in the Denver game that can go and get LeBron running in transition and ease the load off him, is why we got, I think, the most important side effect of this for the Lakers, at least in this current season. Well, remember, 15-4 now in their last 19 games. Playing better defense than most people give them credit for. And offensively, the ability to go out right now and feel like they can score with anyone, given the parts on here that are getting to know each other better. LeBron James had 16 points in the fourth quarter. Usually with LeBron James at now over 40 years old, the conversation had been about him running out of gas late in games, him running out of gas late in the season. Would his body be able to hold up with what was needed of him from the Los Angeles Lakers at this point in time? And the answer when you've got Luka Doncic in tow is, yeah, that guy looked like he had so much more juice in the fourth quarter than the rest of that game, and it seemed by design. LeBron understood, hey, we've got a lead early in this game. I can throttle back a little bit. There's a hilarious number of possessions where LeBron James and whoever was defending him when the transition started to go the other way for Dallas both kind of had the brother-in-law agreement if LeBron had fallen down over in the baseline to just stick around on the other side of the court. There was more than a few 4-on-4 possessions for the Dallas Mavericks on offense against the Lakers defense in a way that just underscored, hey, LeBron is going to pull some punches every now and then for the sake of conserving energy. He's earned that right at this point in his career. He still does everything at an exemplary level by normal human standards, but you could see LeBron James, by LeBron James standards, a little stiffer, a little bit less gas left in the tank, all these different things. And so the Luka Doncic of it all now, and you saw there was the great offensive possession by the two of them where Luka Doncic is down posting up. He kicks it back out to LeBron, repost to Luka, kicks it back out to LeBron, repost to Luka, who finally gets doubled and then hits it out to LeBron for a 3. And everyone oohs and ahs because these guys do have such a natural basketball chemistry because they're both geniuses on the court. You saw the behind-the-head pass from Luka early in that game to set up, I think it was an Austin Reeves or Dalton Connect 3. These guys see the game differently than almost everyone else who's ever played it. And Luka Doncic now, again, doing all of this at such a young age is the reason the trade was shocking to begin with. The third player to record a triple-double against every NBA franchise and 7th all-time in triple-doubles at 25 years old. So all of this is unprecedented and unwieldy. Now, again, we understand with the Lakers, the Jackson Hayes situation at center feels like a big thing. And the Dallas Mavericks, devoid of almost all their inside talent going into this game, with Anthony Davis sitting on the bench along with a number of others who would have usually comprised the group most able to hurt the Lakers, even after going and beating Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets and a team that was built on the inside. That's the concern for the postseason. But right now, the early returns on these guys, stellar, no doubt about that. Luka Doncic, weird night for him, talked in the postgame about what it was like to finally get this crack at his old team after one of the most insane trade deadlines we've ever seen. Take a listen.
It was just a lot of emotions, not much sleep, and it was just, I can't even explain what, it was a different game. Like I said, sometimes I don't know what I was doing, and I'm just glad it's over, honestly. I mean, yeah, Kai is my hermano. We go way beyond basketball, so it was good to see those guys. Like I said, we went through wars together, and it was really fun to see them all. I mean, the closure is going to take a while, I think. It just it's not ideal. But you know, like I said, I'm glad this game is over. You know, it was a lot of emotions, but we go little by little, you know, and every day is better.
Did I miss the part where Kyrie's got some sort of Spanish background? The hermano thing's kind of weird to me.
Yeah, that threw me off. I don't know why he said that. I was like, what?
Well, but Kyrie said that when Luka originally left Dallas, like, that's my hermano, like, this is so much bigger than basketball. So that's clearly a thing between the two of them, which for Kyrie, very weird moment for him also coming into a game where we will get to him, I think is a reminder of exactly how important Kyrie Irving is to on-court basketball. But you saw before the game, he got to see both of his exes. Like, that guy's got championship history with LeBron James, went to the finals last year with Luka. And the NBA ability, the NBA player ability, I should say, to digest, remember, and regurgitate secret handshakes, incredible. Like, these guys rip it off like it's nothing when they go and dap it up mid-court. So, cool moment for all of them to get to see. And I'm sure for Luka, I'm sure for Kyrie, difficult in so many ways. That being said, this Mavs team did not lay down by any stretch of the imagination in this game. And the biggest reason for that was Kyrie Irving. Really, Kyrie Irving and Klay Thompson turning back the clock. 22 points, most of those backloaded in the fourth quarter where he just started striping it from the same spot behind the three-point arc, are the reason Dallas stayed in this game. As, again, if we pushed AD off into the periphery a bit in this game and undersold the nature of his return to Staples in favor of, oh, it's Luka, it's Nico Harrison in the crowd, what kind of stare downs were there going to be? And there were for Luka Doncic and the Mavs bench, even though I'm sure those guys were like, we didn't trade you. We didn't want to lose you. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Kyrie Irving took center stage last night. Like, in a game that was supposed to be about would Luka hit over 32 points and LeBron James, Kyrie Irving stole the show as a player that finished with 35 points, including 5 of 11 from beyond the arc. And I underscore that because there's so much debate about style in the current NBA and this proliferation of three-point shots and how visually pleasing or aesthetically pleasing it is. And it was a good reminder last night about why people, despite the things that happened off the court and the complications with him that have been subdued since he's come over to Dallas for reasons that, if you really want to dig into, are not warm and fuzzy. Since he's come over to Dallas, though, and it's been about the basketball game, we've kind of been reminded that, and I tweeted this last night, Kyrie Irving is the antidote for every complaint about modern NBA basketball. Like, stylistically, one of the most gorgeous players to watch play hoops that's ever laced them up. And it really, like, what it boils down to is he can do a lot of different things. He can score a lot of different ways. He did take 11 three-pointers in this game. He did make 5 of them. That's an important part of it. But Kyrie Irving going towards the basket has always been one of the best sights in basketball. Kyrie's ability to pull the string and ball handle in the mid-range has always been spectacular. And so I think that kind of underscores and underlines what people are looking for when they have these conversations about missing yesteryear, because Kyrie Irving is part of yesteryear at this point. He is one of those guys that is closer to the LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant class of player that we're getting ready to wave goodbye to. And most of those guys, quite honestly, represent those parts of the game that, you know, maybe part of it's soaked in nostalgia, but it's also just people like seeing different styles, and Kyrie Irving presents that to you. Great players tend to present that to you. And so that's the worry, is that we're going to form a cookie cutter generation of players that won't have nearly that same ability to captivate us that Kyrie Irving has. Here was Kyrie after the game talking about his perspective of seeing Luka Doncic on the court in a different jersey.
Awkward as shit, you know. It was awkward, but you know, now I could talk about the emotions of it. Yeah, no, it was awkward, but at the same time, it was fun. You know, we got a chance to, you know, feel like we were in practice all over again, going at each other. You know, that was a good reflection point. And then just, you know, seeing the crowd cheer for him and just get him going and see him make some of the tough shots that I've seen him make thousands of times. That's probably made it even more awkward, but you know, it was fun. It was fun competing.
Gojo, by the way,
Jesse, what do you got?
Courtesy of Samir Dayouk, figured out the hermano thing. So Luka played for Spain's youth system when he was 15 for 3 years. So I don't know, maybe Kyrie was like, okay. So that's where that comes from, because it did seem super random.
All right, there we go. You know what? That
Hermanos.
solves that mystery. And for now, what we do going forward with all of this information, Hermano included, I think is interesting because, listen, Luka came out and played really well. The triple-double underscores that, but it wasn't the dominant flamethrower performance that some people thought we were going to get. And I think that's fine. I think that's healthy because it's a good reminder that this is not going to be linear progress in Los Angeles. I'm sure there are going to be ebbs and flows, especially because you have the looming threat of injury with him. Quite honestly, with Kyrie Irving, if you want to get excited about last night, that guy's got a bulging disc in his back, and that can get haywire in a hurry as someone that's dealt with plenty of that. And so for Dallas, this is a good reminder that short-term and long-term success Nico Harrison promised doesn't look like it's coming anytime soon, as the guy you netted in that trade, Anthony Davis, was sitting tight on the sideline. And for the Lakers, a lot to get excited about. I still don't know if that train comes on time to give you what you want this year in the postseason. But we've seen that group as offensively gifted as anyone, defensively better than they're going to get credit for, and going to enjoy that combination of Luka and LeBron for a long time. Coming up next, we had Talkin' Day at the NFL Combine. We'll give you the best news and notes from all the GMs here on Gojo and Golic. All right, not to be outdone, the NFL, plenty of drama to offer as yesterday as the NFL Combine gets going, at least in the off-field portion. The on-field workouts that are going to get started tomorrow, where we'll have D-line and linebackers going. Friday, when we'll have defensive backs and tight ends working out. Saturday, the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs. And folks, strap in for a beautiful, easy, sweaty Sunday. The offensive line, the final group of the NFL Combine, going to be a joy for everyone to watch here. Ratings bonanza coming up Sunday to an NFL Network TV near you. But yesterday, we had a portion that's, I think, equally as important. The Combine can be a lot about talking, from the interviews with players that will ultimately define what a lot of these teams can find out about these guys between the ears and from the neck up. to all of the conversations in bars, late night rooms, trying to have teams iron out deals that might eventually come to fruition, there's also the talking in front of the microphone that went down yesterday, as we had a lot of, Jesse, coaches, general managers, team personnel who had to get up in front of the microphone and try and either explain what had happened last season or what their team's plan of attack was this offseason. And no shortage of drama there to go along with its NBA counterpart last night. So where do we want to start, Jesse?
Yeah, let's start with the number one pick here. So Titans GM Mike Borgonzi, he spoke to the media and said they've already received a bunch of calls about the availability of the number one pick. Too early for them to really decide what they're going to do there, but he did have some nice things to say about Shedeur Sanders.
You know, anytime you have number one pick, it's always going to be a topic of conversation. Yeah.
Has it gotten to a point where, you know, a lot of other teams are getting very nosy, so to speak?
You know, I would say we've had some phone calls. Yeah. You know, I'll keep those phone calls to the vest, but we've had some phone calls, yeah.
You found your generational talent as you've gone through the draft.
Listen, there's a handful of players, you know, anytime at the top of the draft that you would deem generational talents, and we certainly feel that way this year as well.
How would you
All right, Gojo, what do you think? What's the best move for the Titans here? Should they consider trading that number one pick? Do you see any generational talent that they could be talking about here?
Well, you should always consider trading the number one pick if you've got the ability and if you're not going to take a quarterback. And I don't think these guys are. I think they're desperate, but not as desperate as some others. And number one's too rich for either of the quarterbacks in this draft, in Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. And so I think if you're talking about trading it, that's got to take a partner. And that's the one thing I think they're going to be lacking as a team that's really willing to go up and part ways with a significant amount of capital, the kind of which it would take you to move down from number one and potentially lose out on drafting the player you do deem generational. That seems in my mind to only be Travis Hunter. Like, there's other very high-end players. Like Abdul Carter absolutely could be the number one overall pick in the draft, but he feels like another in a string of very talented edge rushers. And I don't know if he's going to become Micah Parsons or not. He wears the, he wears the uniform. He's made the switch to defensive end earlier in his career and was incredible. God, got to watch him for a lot of the season. We got to watch him up close, basically rushing with one arm, playing against Notre Dame. And that dude was a bat out of hell, an absolute nightmare to try to deal with on the perimeter. And we know now not going to perform and not going to work out at the combine because of that shoulder injury sustained in that game and exacerbated in that game. But an incredible player. But the generational label feels like, if we're going to use it honestly, only applies to Travis Hunter. I could see either of those guys going number one overall. And if Tennessee walked out of the draft with Abdul Carter or with Travis Hunter, I think they'd be very, very happy with it. Probably be supplementing their quarterback room with a veteran to go along with and push Will Levis. But the quarterback question is one they're not going to be able to dodge here. Here he was again talking about Shedeur Sanders, who is going to get a lot of questions, especially because he isn't throwing at the combine this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly been quarterbacks over the years, and to answer your question about Shedeur, I think he has plenty of arm strength.
Okay.
In some of the anticipatory throws sometimes make up for the lack of arm strength.
Right.
And certainly we've seen quarterbacks over the years that are able to do that because they anticipate better. And a lot of that has to do with field instincts too. You know, if a player has a really good field vision and instincts and have a feel for it to anticipate some of those throws. There's been successful quarterbacks that really haven't had great arm talent that have played in the league.
So that's not necessarily something you see issue with, although others...
Listen, we want him to make every throw at a high level. But yeah, that does come into play at certain points.
And this is why I don't want to do the usual analogy, but this is why Diet Joe Burrow is sort of the comp in some ways with Shedeur Sanders, just because arm strength not the hallmark for either player, and yet Joe Burrow has been one of the most successful downfield passers, in part because of the anticipation ability, and Shedeur Sanders, at least in college, has demonstrated a lot of that same stuff. So, again, doesn't qualify for generational. I don't think worthy of the number one overall pick or in consideration for that right now. And I don't know if it'll be enough. Now, Cleveland at 2 seems like they're in play. A lot of the mocks have Cleveland going after a quarterback and going after Cam Ward out of Miami. So we'll see what happens there. But speaking of multi-quarterback problems, Jesse, let's move on to our next bit of sound. What do we got here?
Yeah, so Terry Fontenot spoke about Kirk Cousins, obviously hot topic. Everybody has their minds on that. So Cousins recently said that he took a hit in the Falcons' Week 10 loss against the Saints that left him with a lingering injury issues for the rest of the season that he was dealing with. Now, we find out on Tuesday that apparently this was news to the Falcons brass.
Look, Kirk was on the injury report leading into the Denver game, and he wasn't on the injury report. Outside of that, we're only aware of that particular week. We talked about it when that change was made. It was a football decision. It was based off football decision. There wasn't anything injury-related.
So awkward here that apparently they didn't know that Kirk Cousins was dealing with lingering injury issues. And then it was also said that basically they're going to be very comfortable moving forward with Kirk as a backup. So it's just kind of awkward here after paying him all that money, very comfortable with him as a backup.
Yeah, so this one actually all around makes a lot more sense to me than I expected on the surface. The reason I think they're being a little coy about talking about that injury publicly is like, man, Kurt, stop scaring the bros. Like, we're trying to potentially trade you and get you to a place that might want you as the starter. And so talking about how injured you were in the back half of the season, well, if you're Kirk Cousins, listen, getting that out there as one of the reasons that might absolve you from the poor play that we saw, I get from a personal pride standpoint, but from now a talent acquisition standpoint, I'm sure Atlanta would like to be able to sell a healthy asset and also believe that they just made the right decision for their football team in terms of the quality of quarterback play they're going to get out of Michael Penix. That being said, when you look at the finances of this situation, if the Falcons were to release Kirk Cousins before the start of the league year, he wouldn't get a $10 million roster bonus, but the team would also be stuck with a $65 million dead cap hit anyway. If they do it after June 1st, they can spread that out a little bit. But the bottom line is there's not a ton of savings that they're going to get with the salary cap, something that Terry Fontenot used to with his roots in New Orleans. And so I understand them being comfortable. If someone's not going to come with a trade offer that would net Atlanta assets for losing Kirk Cousins, Jesse, to your point, having him as the backup there, they had earmarked this money and these amount of resources for this quarterback room anyway. They just thought it'd be in reverse for a little while. They thought you'd have Kirk Cousins paid $100 million as your starter, and Michael Penix Jr., the number 8 overall pick in the draft, is the backup. They just flip-flop, but it's the same amount of capital in that quarterback room as they anticipated for the next, 2 years in some estimations. If people wanted this 3-year runway that would get us to Michael Penix Jr., albeit at an older age, that maybe mitigated some of that contract and made him being chosen in the first round feel a little dicey. But if you are Atlanta, I can see a comfort with that says, yeah, we're fine having a dependable veteran in the room that can help mold our rookie quarterback, who we also planned on having spend anyway at that position in our budget. The way that we looked at this long-term, quarterback should be the number one place where you've got your long-term finances in order, the way you allocate these resources. They planted their flag on that last year, and so now going forward, I think operating with that in mind as not even a sunk cost, but just the reality that you planned for in a different form, to me is totally fine for them and is a great position to operate from if you're in Atlanta. You don't feel desperate, like you need to trade for Kirk Cousins for any reason. And so it allows you to sit there, hold on, and see as the quarterback carousel turns this offseason. Is a team like Vegas going to get desperate enough? Is a team like Tennessee or Pittsburgh or New York, all these teams that we hear bantered about with Matthew Stafford or potentially Aaron Rodgers on the cheap or anything like that, when any of them decide, the Cleveland Browns we talked about the other day, bring Kirk Cousins in for a reputation watch as much as a scheme fit and everything that would go with that. So I do think they're in a good position here. Different than what we've got with the drama on the outgoing team for Aaron Rodgers. Jesse, why don't we talk a little bit about the Jets and the Aaron Rodgers situation?
Yeah, so obviously we know that they're parting ways, and Coach Aaron Glenn spoke to the media and admitted that the decision to split with Rodgers has definitely upset some people in the locker room.
I understand the reaction of the players, but I will say this. Every decision that me and Mooch make is to win, and to win now. So I understand it. But again, listen, this is not going to be the last decision I make, right? That's going to upset some people. And that's okay, right? But as men, we talk about it. We make sure we keep it in house. That we're going to continue to do.
Like, any concern here? Aaron Glenn's getting off on the wrong foot, upsetting the locker room. Also, I'm a little surprised that people were that upset by this decision, given that Aaron Rodgers spent a lot of time at the podium, like throwing teammates under the bus.
Yeah, I do think that we see that part of it, but the reason and the source of that, I think, was star D tackle Quinnen Williams apparently posted the emoji of a thumbs down along with another rebuild for me, I guess, on X when back in February news of those plans to part ways with Aaron Rodgers leaked. And I get it, especially from the defensive player standpoint. Really, the offensive guys, too. Jesse, they spent so long on this team dealing with just revolving door of mediocre quarterback options and failed offensive performance for Quinnen Williams and that defense while they tried to carry the day. While in the last couple of seasons, they tried to go out there and put the team on their back as best they could. And in Aaron Rodgers, they saw someone who had done this before, some measure of consistency, and what they hoped at least originally was salvation. Now, obviously, it did not evolve into that in the way that anyone had hoped. But what we all see as the distraction, they saw as an answer to a problem that had been plaguing them. And now going back out into that wasteland where you're trying to find a quarterback is a place that they've lived and know they don't like. So I can understand completely why some of the players might react that way originally. It should be noted, I'm sure not everyone reacted that way. And that's why I think the response here from Aaron Glenn is exactly what you'd want to see. Leadership requires conviction in your decisions, even in the face of dissent, because not everything is going to be unanimous. Not everything is going to be liked by everyone in a locker room this big and in an organization that's got this many different people with different opinions. And so if you're Aaron Glenn, this is exactly the response that you want to see. Hey, we went and talked about it face to face. One of the best things and one of the best sells about Aaron Glenn was his interpersonal dealing with other guys inside the organization. You heard the way that players on the Lions defense raved about this guy. And so him making this decision, which, by the way, I think is the right one. If you are trying to change the tides inside the Jets building, that's a longer standing problem than Aaron Glenn, even as a player, whether being a guy that was a former first-round pick there, you've got to be willing to mix some things up. And Aaron Rodgers, while yes, on paper, who seemed like a more steady answer at the quarterback position, we know, Jesse, for the reasons that you mentioned, all of the stuff off the field, and there was the rumors that they had to dispel that they had apparently made Aaron Rodgers' potential return contingent on him not going on Pat McAfee and not being such a presence in the media. They came out and flatly denied all that stuff. And I believe them on that side. I believe that that wasn't something they were concerned about because they probably know, hey, this is just what you get if you sign up for this fully formed player at this point in his career. And so I think they made the right decision in trying to reestablish a culture there. It's going to be difficult, and again, for veteran players around this league, they understand better than most what a rebuild actually means, what it's like to go through the growing pains of trying to set that foundation. They just tried to do that with Rob Saleh a number of years ago, and it went horribly, and I'm sure it was miserable. Even if you're getting paid millions of dollars, showing up to work is the butt of the joke, and going out there on the precious Sundays that you get before your body ultimately shuts you down, those things are difficult to stomach even for the best of guys. And so all the reactions all around here make sense. But I think Aaron Glenn has already come in and demonstrated the kind of leadership ability in answering and responding to all of this in a way that is curt but fair and making a tough decision right off the gate that he's going to stick by and is still standing 10 toes down on. To me, the sign that the leader you expected is the leader you've got, at least in the early returns that we get to see. The person you get next here on this show, Jessica Smetana from the Dan Le Batard Show, going to join and talk about a WNBA legend hanging it up. Here we go. All right, welcome back to Gojo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Jesse Cofield here, riding solo as Dad gets set to get his bionic shoulder in today. And speaking of radical procedures, before we get Jessica Smetana on here from the Dan Le Batard Show, this stuff about Joel Embiid's potential treatment for his knee injury are wild. According to the Philadelphia Inquirer, Joel Embiid, who is finally mercifully going to get shut down by the 76ers this season, and something that should have happened a while ago, apparently could undergo some wild procedures to fix his knee. Some of the options include low-dose radiation therapy, or even one that sounds a lot more ominous, osteotomy, which doctors then break the bone in the hip to help realign the entire joint and alleviate pressure. All of this on the table as apparently what should have been pretty routine. Like Joel Embiid tearing a meniscus is something that happens to a lot of guys, but we do know the differences in a 7-footer above a certain weight. And I know Boogie Cousins was a guy telling Joel Embiid he needs to lose even more weight, kind of make that transition for the 30-year-old portion, a 30-plus-year-old portion of his career. But either way, this needed to happen. It's long overdue. And now what they're going to do in order to try and get this guy right, it sounds like it's reached desperation, which is concerning if you're a Sixers fan, because, again, how it got to this point where maybe Joel pressed it too much to try and play in the Olympics in the summer, I don't know. But the fact that the rehab for something that seems routine went this haywire to now where we're talking about radiation and breaking bones, not the place you want to be if you're the Philadelphia 76ers. Place we want to be right here on Gojo and Golic, talking to Jessica Smetana, kind enough to join us from South Beach here this morning. Smetty, what's going on, bud? How we doing?
Doing well. I'm actually really disappointed in myself because I saw Rice Krispie treat Peeps yesterday, and I didn't buy them. And I am realizing now this would have been a perfect forum to try one.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to say, as a fellow Peep connoisseur, Jess, I am a little bit disappointed that we didn't get to share this moment together. But also, thank you for your service and alerting me. That's what's happened a lot to me, Jess, since I've become like the pseudo snack guy, at least on some people's Twitter feeds, is now I barely have to look for stuff. People just see a fat thing and bring it to my attention like, oh, here, you'll like this. And 9 out of 10 times they're correct. So is that the wildest brand of Peep that you've seen here? What have you dabbled in?
I saw Dr. Pepper flavor, which doesn't seem that wild to me. That seems like a pretty solid combination. It's just going to taste like sugar and Dr. Pepper. But Rice Krispie, I'm intrigued by the texture. Is it crispy? Is it going to snap, crackle, pop? I don't know. I really want to try it.
Yeah, and listen, a huge fan of different textural eats. It's one of the reasons I love the Thin Mint Girl Scout cookie Wendy's Frosty combination. A textural marvel, a delight, and something that everyone can enjoy. And support the Girl Scouts by buying more cookies, because why not here? Jess, while we want to talk about cookies the entire time here, I do know you and I we're going to spend some part of this gas bagging about Notre Dame women's basketball. And by the way, shouting out Notre Dame, apparently according to Forbes, the #1 large business to work at in the country. Sure. I saw that the other day. I have no idea what the basis is, but light up the #1 on Grace Hall, Jess. If you could go back to Notre Dame and have any job, what would it be?
Oh, that's such a good question. Head football coach? I don't know. That would be stressful, but kind of fun to dabble in. And then we'd go like 0-12 and I'd get fired. But it'd be like a fun year for me personally. What about you?
Oh, man, yeah. Head football coach would be way too stressful for me. I always had this dream. Me and my buddy wanted to go back to our high school and just hang out and be janitors. And you get the Goodwill Hunting jokes that would come from doing that at a college campus, where I'd just be sitting around solving equations completely wrong. But I'd want to do, honestly, you know what? At Notre Dame, actually, Jess, I would want to go back and be an usher. And if anyone's not familiar with them, they're the stewards of the university on a home football weekend. They're the yellow hats and vests that you see guiding people around, welcoming them to Notre Dame. It's a well-worn tradition going back, years and years at Notre Dame. And one where a lot of my favorite people are ushers there. And it's a job where, yeah, on game day, it's probably a little stressful, but you got your area. You're generally there to be someone people are excited to see. So I'd like to be a kindly old usher.
I like that. That's kind of sweet. And you get to watch the football game, sort of. You get, tickets to a lot of the events. That's not a bad one. I think realistically, a professor who teaches like a Friday seminar about like sports media or like movies or one of like the FTT classes that I took that were awesome. Like that would be a more realistic option and something sort of in my wheelhouse. But Yeah, I don't know. It would be fun to dabble at the university for a little bit.
Could I talk you into Leprechaun, Jess? Was there any part of you that ever wanted to scratch that itch?
Not even a little bit. I think you have to, one of the requirements is you have to be able to do a backflip, right? I can't do that.
Wow, I did not know that. I know the Leprechaun's on scholarship. That much I do know, kind of like the Irish Guard, but I did not know about the backflip. So shout out to those guys. Scholarship well earned.
Yeah, I think there's a cheer component to it, and that's something that I would not be qualified for. But I am qualified to scream at people to like stand up and cheer. So maybe like the Leprechaun's assistant.
There we go. Assistant to the regional Leprechaun, Jessica Smetana, back in South Bend here. Smetty, big news yesterday out of the W. Diana Taurasi hanging up the, I guess not cleats, but hanging up the sneakers here, the leading scorer in WNBA history. And it's got to be interesting for DT retiring at this juncture, Jess. Listen, playing 20 seasons and saying, yeah, I feel pretty full after that. Understandable for someone who's synonymous with the women's game and success at every level here. But retiring right now has to feel like maybe you're just missing out, because it feels like we've hit the inflection point where Diana will no doubt be able to say, yes, I helped bring the game to this point. But at the same time, as we're getting ready to watch what feels like a real star turn happening right now for the women's sport, I'm sure part of her is bummed that she's going to miss out on what seems to be the prime years coming up for women's basketball.
Yeah, and I don't think those prime years would happen without Diana Taurasi. Like, she's been so important to the growth of women's basketball, not just because of, you know, all of the things she's done off the court, but just like her commitment to playing high-level basketball and being an absolute like basketball freak and being addicted to playing basketball, I think was what one of the things she said in the Time story I was reading yesterday. Announcing her retirement. Yeah, she's just been a tremendous force, and it's going to be really hard for anyone to replicate the kind of career that she had. But I think the thing that will be missed the most is her attitude. Like the story that I was reading in Time, again, like Sue Bird called her a kind asshole. And I think that's such a lovely way to describe her. Like, she's so fierce and she's such a tremendous shit and really cares about the next generation of players too. So, yeah, like, man, happy trails. I really hope she sticks around and keeps doing like the Final Four broadcasts and stuff like that with Sue Bird and kind of stays around the game. But she'll definitely be missed. I will miss watching her play.
Yeah, I do think her and Sue Bird turning into like the media arm that especially is like that bridge between the current players and media would be awesome, because losing stars like that, the people that, you know, growing up, quite honestly, as UConn was such the dominant force for a long time, were stars on the college level there. And for Diana Taurasi, I mean, part of 3 championships there, part of the undefeated season there, one of the best in the sport's history, before going on to a 3-time WNBA champion with the Sun, 2-time finals MVP, 11-time WNBA All-Star, and 10-time All-WNBA first teamer. Having that at both levels gives them a level of access and respect that few are ever going to be able to touch. She is no doubt, like you said, one of the all-time greats here. But now it has given way to this time where even at the college level, like Jess, I had someone hit me up the other day that said for the first time they're more excited going into March, getting ready to watch the women's tournament than the men's tournament. And I think for a lot of people, that turn happened a few years ago now, where you had Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and all these storylines that had proliferated women's college basketball for a while. But now as we head into this run, and you've got so many household names, and you've got, you know, billboards coming off the Super Bowl Nike ad out here in Los Angeles. Juju Watkins is 20 stories tall on the side of a building, the USC superstar here. It does feel like now this is here to stay, where the women's game and the characters they're able to develop and the stars around here have created a product that's going to be incredibly compelling going down this home stretch.
Yeah, definitely. That was one of the things that a lot of people talked about last year. It was like, oh, Caitlin Clark is going to be, you know, in the WNBA this season. Like, what's going to happen? Is the interest level going to stay the same? But there were so many talented freshmen and sophomores last year that people got to know watching the tournament that have been having incredible seasons this year. Obviously, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you know Hannah Hidalgo is one of them, and she's an absolute menace on the court. And I would be so annoyed if I was playing against her, in a good way if you're a Notre Dame fan. But Yeah, it's been a really fun season, and I think one of the cool things about this season in women's hoops is that, like, I can't tell you who's gonna win. There's like a bunch of teams up there near the top, Notre Dame included, that have a championship caliber roster that can make a run and win the thing. And in the last few years, you could maybe say there's like one or two teams that you really feel like has a strong enough roster to make that run. And this year, it feels like there's, I don't know, 7 or 8 maybe. And NC State, who beat Notre Dame on Sunday, is certainly one of them. They have really, really good guards on their team, and guard play in the tournament is huge. So I'm going to go full homer and say that double overtime loss to NC State on Sunday is a good loss. Notre Dame needed to lose a game in the States this season. It was the first game on U.S. soil that they've lost. But those are two teams that can end up in the Final Four. So, like, it's going to be a really fun stretch down here until we get to the tournament.
First game lost in the States, first ACC loss of the entire season. I was really hoping that we were going to get to lord that over the ACC, because I know we've got a piece in all the other sports, but I feel like that just tint of resentment from everyone in the conference that we're kind of half in and half out. And so I very much enjoyed that. You mentioned Hannah Hidalgo, who right now, DraftKings Sportsbook, if you're looking for the Women's Wooden Award winning betting lines, Juju Watkins, the favorite at -220, which seems wild to me. Hannah Hidalgo, third in the odds behind Lauren Betts at UCLA, and then Hannah Hidalgo at +400, considering the fact that Hannah Hidalgo has a higher points per game average, not by much, but enough, than Juju Watkins, is top 5 in steals per game, and beat USC out at USC earlier in the season. Am I taking crazy pills on this, Jess, or has Juju Watkins done enough since then to warrant this kind of hype?
No, I don't think you're taking crazy pills. I think the other thing that's impressive about Hannah is that she's doing it on a team with another guard who is having a all-star level season in Olivia Miles. I got to watch this Notre Dame team in person for the first time last week when they came down to Miami to play the Hurricanes. Olivia Miles in person is so electric. She's making passes that, I mean, I guess you could compare it to Luka Doncic last night against the Lakers, just like behind the back, eyes closed, like all these sorts of like crazy creative plays. And Hannah is still standing out on a team with her and Sonia Citron, who may be the number 2 or number 3 player selected in the WNBA draft this season. So it's a stacked team. And I think Hannah, she's defensively as a 5'6" guard doing crazy disruptive plays on every defensive possession. And then she's also able to draw fouls. She's able to drive to the basket. She's able to hit 3-pointers. She's a really talented player. And so, no, I don't think you're taking crazy pills, but I do think it just speaks to the level of talent, around the whole country right now. Both of the other players you mentioned are having fantastic seasons and are also on teams that could make a really deep run in March Madness here. So, yeah, I'm rooting for Notre Dame, obviously, rooting for Hannah, but it's going to be a crazy competitive next couple games. And Notre Dame's got 2 more ranked teams to finish out the season, Florida State and Louisville. They still have a chance at the regular season ACC title, even though they won't be undefeated in ACC regular season play. Well, that's okay. They still have a chance, obviously, at ACC tournament, back-to-back champs. So a lot still in front of Notre Dame. And I think, the key is just to sort of focus on winning the next 2 games. Don't look around too much at what everyone else is doing, because there have been some crazy upsets in the last couple of weeks, and just win out those games, play well, and put that NC State loss in the rearview mirror.
I'm with you. I think much like a late summer rain, we needed this to go and kind of reset here. Neil Ivey, who's done a phenomenal job since taking over for the legend in Muffet McGraw in South Bend, one of our very own who's come back now and led them to prominence, got them ranked number 1 for the first time since 2019, albeit for a moment. All has a very promising feel to it as we head towards tournament time here. Smetty, always appreciate the time, my friend. Thank you so much. I look forward to coming back and watching you coach the Irish at some point in the future.
Hey, as long as you accept the fact that it'll be the worst team you've ever seen, like, I'll have fun coaching it.
Terrible football team, but immaculate vibes. And the peep selection in the player lounge, going to be A+ stuff there. Rice Krispies treats for all.
Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess. Coming up next, take a look ahead. You can already bet over-unders on the Combine at DraftKings Sportsbook. What if I told you could also bet the Oscars coming up this weekend? We'll give you a look at early lines for Best Picture and talk mock drafts in hour number 2 with Jordan Reid and Nate Tice coming up next.
Welcome back to Gojo and Golic. The Oscars are this weekend, and you know what that means. Obviously, we have odds on the DraftKings Sportsbook for the Oscars. The odds for Best Picture are right here. NOLA leading the way at -200. Bunch of other ones on here. Gojo, have you seen any of these? I'm guessing Dune Part 2, and we've both seen Wicked. I know that.
How dare you typecast me? Of course I've seen Dune Part 2.
Yeah, I know.
I'm a boy of a middle-aged, I guess borderline middle-aged boy, but yeah, I've seen Wicked and Dune Part 2, so I contain multitudes. I had never heard of Nora before this exact moment, so congratulations on its likely win, and maybe someday I would like to even see a bit of promotion for it. Who knows? All right, hour number 2 here at Gojo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr. and Jesse Cofield hanging out with you guys. Dad, got to be close to going under the knife at this point here. New shoulder, new me. Who this for Mike Golic Sr.? Next time you see him out here, just easy on the dap for a while. He's going to be on dap and hand. Oh, no, I think it's his left shoulder, actually. So he'll be good with the right-handed side here. This really is one predicated on the golf game. So we'll get going with that. We will also get going with more NFL Combine news coming up here. Nate Tice going to join us in about 15 minutes, but also live in Indianapolis right now, ESPN NFL draft analyst Jordan Reid kind enough to join us this morning here as we got new mocks dropping from Mel Kiper Jr. in the lead up to the Combine here. Life is good, man. You got to be feeling great as we get into the meat of draft season now, Jordan.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to join the show, but this is the best time of the year, being able to be in Indianapolis, consuming as much steak as I can, fellowshipping with everybody while watching guys run around at the Combine too. So it's a fun time of the year.
For me, who's a first-timer heading to Indianapolis, and for people listening who have maybe never been to the Combine, never been around for this, how would you best encapsulate and describe the Combine experience for you?
It's kind of like a huge convention for everybody that you see on Twitter, and it's like a huge high school reunion to where you're seeing all your friends, but it happens once a year. But it's fun. You know, Indianapolis, they really embrace the event. I believe this is the 38th or 39th year that has been in Indianapolis, and the city has really embraced it. But the thing that I love about it is that such a tight-knit community, everything's right here together, and they do a good job of putting on a great event.
No doubt a spectacular event that gets going. The on-field portion tomorrow, plenty of talking that's been going on in the last couple of days. As far as the prospects at this year's Combine, we've heard a lot about who's not participating. Shedeur Sanders not going to throw. Abdul Carter, because of the injury, not going to participate. Who are the couple of the players that you are most excited to see work out that might actually be able to improve their stock a bit this week?
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple of names. And the first one is Nick Emanwori. He's a safety from South Carolina. And there's a lot of debate on if him or Malachi Starks out of Georgia are going to be the first safety off of the board. But I believe he's going to be the talk of the Combine when we look back on it on Sunday. And, you know, he's going to come in at about 6'2.5", 230 pounds. He's probably going to run the the high 4.3s or low 4.4s, probably jump 40+ in the vertical, and I think he's going to jump over 11 feet in the broad jump. So he's going to put up some freaky numbers. He's one I'm definitely looking forward to, and going to give you a small school prospect, offensive lineman. I know that's going to make you very happy. So his name is Charles Grant out of William and Mary. I think he's going to put up some really, really good numbers.
All right, there we go. Beef. Coming a little bit uncertain sourced beef for people that are used to seeing it from the Bamas, the Georgias, the Notre Dame of the world. We love small school beef making its way. Coming off a year where, listen, I heard Howie Roseman the other day say, we believe you can never have enough offensive or defensive linemen. I think for a lot of people looking at the Death Star the Eagles have built, that's been the flavor of it. And the D-line group in this draft, Jordan, seems to be one that's got a ton of depth and quality to it here. Certainly headlined by Abdul Carter, but who else in that defensive line group can people expect to see have their name called pretty early in this draft?
Gojo, I'm so excited to see this defensive line class move around. I believe this is the best group since that 2019 class. And if you remember, that had names like Nick Bosa, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Montez Sweat. The list goes on and on of the players that were in the first round of that draft class. But this year we have guys like Abdul Carter that you mentioned already, Mason Graham out of Michigan. I'm looking forward to seeing him move around. Kenneth Grant, his counterpart at Michigan, another player that a lot of people are excited about. Walter Nolan, who's a defensive tackle from Ole Miss that's expected to test and put up some freaky numbers as well. But another name that a lot of people are really excited about is Shamar Stewart, who's a defensive end out of Texas A&M that just absolutely lit up the Senior Bowl. So just listed about 5 or 6 guys right there. And there's about 8 or 9 others that a lot of people are excited about to watch tomorrow.
As I was watching some of the offensive line prospects in this draft that we'll get to at some point, one of my biggest takeaways watching, especially the guys that played in the SEC, it did not look fun to play against Shamar and that Texas A&M defensive front. Game in and game out. Jesus, those dudes were something special. I wanted to ask you about this because I was looking through Mel's latest mock draft and something caught me by surprise. It's a name that I had heard before, bantered about in the draft, but had not seen up this high. Everyone has understood Ashton Genty is going to be a first-round running back. Mel mocked him at, I believe, 6 overall to the Las Vegas Raiders. but then 6 picks later had the Dallas Cowboys taking Amarian Hampton out of North Carolina at running back for that team. Talk to me about the way that you see this number 2 running back in the class, and is this someone that's deserving of this first-round hype?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll say about this year's running back class is that it's the best since that 2017 class. And if you remember, that had Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey, Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara. There were some names in that class. Now, it's not as star-studded at the top, in my opinion. Like, we're not going to see 2 guys go inside the top 10 like we saw with that class, but there's some dang good running backs in this year's class. Everybody knows about Ashton Genty, but I'm really interested to see who is the second running back off of the board. I would say the favorite right now, and I agree with Mel, would be Amarian Hampton. I think he caught a lot of people by surprise, projecting him at 12 overall to the Dallas Cowboys, but nobody's going to complain if they do take a running back just because they have a huge need there. Even though Rico Dowdle had a really good year last year, they could serve an upgrade in that spot. But with Amarian Hampton, I think he's special. And, you know, the year that Ashton Genty had, it kind of shadowed or clouded, I should say, just how good Amarian Hampton was a year ago. I mean, 10-plus games of over 100 yards. He absolutely lit it up in the ACC. So Amarian Hampton is one. And 3 other names that I'll give you: Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. He could be another name that comes off the board really quickly. And then the Ohio State duo of Trevion Henderson, then also Quinshon Judkins.
It really is an impressive group. A lot of name value, and running backs, a position that, because of the way it is in the NFL, a lot of these guys that could start getting money in college stuck around maybe a little bit longer, were able to cash in some there, and so are certainly names that I think a lot of them you just mentioned, people very familiar with. Let's talk about some of the beef up front on offense in this class. Everyone is chasing offensive line. You can do team needs for almost everyone, and offensive line is going to pop up in some way or shape or form. How would you describe this class at the top in terms of what's available, whether it's, you know, interior, game-changing perimeter offensive linemen? What do you think is the biggest sell for this class in the first round?
You know, what's really interesting about this class is that there's such a debate on, is this guy a tackle or is this guy a guard? And that's what you really see at the top of this year's draft. It's not like last year's crop of where we had some bona fide tackles at the top, you know, Joe Ald and Amarius Mims and guys like that. We don't really have those guys that we know are going to stay at tackle. And, you know, I think the 2 at the top right now, in my opinion, are Will Campbell of LSU. And there's some debate about if he should slide inside or if he should stay on an island outside at tackle. So the arm length is going to be something that a lot of people are looking at for him. The magical number of 33 inches, that's going to be something that a lot of people are going to be looking at. I call it the Kenny Pickett hand size debate of this year's draft class, just to see how long his arms are. Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas is another name that a lot of people are going to be keeping eyes on. Josh Simmons of Ohio State, we're unfortunately not going to see him test just because he had a knee injury that he suffered during the 6th game of the season in Oregon. He was having a really good year, but one name I think has a chance to actually be the first offensive lineman off of the board. His name is Armand Mimbu out of Mizzou, and he's a player that really had a breakout season this year, and he's another guy that's on the fence of being a guard or a tackle, but he had a great year at right tackle last year. So it's a really interesting class in the facet of, is this guy a tackle or a guard? But I've always had the feeling of, and the belief of, let this guy show you that he's not capable of playing tackle first before we slide him inside.
Yeah, especially someone like Will Campbell, where you've seen plenty of elite tackle reps in a conference with plenty of high-end players. I'd give him the shot to spin at that position, but for my Zoolander fans, it sounds like a clash of slashies, and that's okay because it's headlined by maybe the greatest slashie to ever play college football in Travis Hunter, in one of the greatest two-way players we've seen, a Heisman Trophy winner, and a guy who said coming to the combine he's going to go out here and test and do everything as a defensive back. But Jordan, how split is it on him when you talk to people around the NFL about the way that they view him as a corner or a wide receiver?
Yeah, it's a true 50-50 split, honestly, Gojo. And just listening to the GMs talk that potentially could select Travis Hunter at the top, whether it's, Andrew Berry, he actually viewed him as a wide receiver, while Brian Callahan, the head coach of the Titans, actually said they would start him at corner first if they were to draft him. So it is a true 50-50 split, but just assessing him overall as a prospect, I think he's far and away the best player in the draft. I think this dude is so rare as a two-way player, somebody that averaged nearly 120 snaps a game, something that is just absurd and really never heard of. Really, the last example that we have of him is, and this has been my NFL comparison for him even coming into this year, is Champ Bailey when he was coming out of Georgia in the late 90s. He was a player that played on the defensive side and then also transitioned to play receiver as well. But ultimately, he chose the defensive backside of the NFL, and he's wearing a gold jacket now. So I think Travis Hunter has that rare two-way ability of being able to play both sides, but I would start him as a corner first, and then I would sprinkle in maybe 20 to 25 plays a game of him as a wide receiver, just because I just don't think the type of player that he is, you can't limit him to one side of the ball. But he's proven us wrong time and time again. He may be able to go out there and play over 120 snaps in the NFL. He's just that rare of a player. I'm not going to doubt him.
No, doubt that, man, at your own risk. I'm curious, though, for you, why corner? Because, and looking at this before, it's interesting to consider it from a number of angles. Certainly, the tape's going to do most of the talking on this, but when we look at the value at the NFL, receiver has started to exceed the highest paid cornerbacks, despite, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, corner, and especially one that can go out there and lock down and do the things that Travis can, seems like a rarer commodity overall. So why do you hone in on cornerback as the place that you think could be the initial home?
When I was actually debating this with somebody in the league, I actually had this debate yesterday, and he raised the question to me, outside of Troy Brown in New England, have you ever heard of somebody playing receiver full-time and then going over and playing corner? I can't think of any other examples in NFL history of somebody actually doing that. I just think it's more of an occurrence of him playing corner full-time and then going out and playing receiver. And then I've never heard of anybody really playing, outside of Troy Brown, really playing corner part-time. And then it's like, when exactly do you put him in? As a corner, do you put him in the red zone? Do you put him in the open field? What situations do you use him as a corner? But receiver, I think, is more clear cut of when you can use him, just because you can build those plays around him for him to focus on.
No, it does make sense with all the communication, with all the continuity that is required playing on the back end of defense versus what you can do with some specific roles in offense. I definitely understand that. All right, we saved the what usually people associate as the best for last. Let's talk a little bit about the quarterbacks in this class. Everyone has kind of taken their turns, starting to diminish this class a little bit relative to recent ones. How do you compare these two quarterbacks when you look at Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, who are widely viewed as the top two?
Yeah, it's really interesting just because when you match up the resumes, their how they got here moment is very similar, but stylistically, they couldn't be any more different. And what I mean by how they got here moment is that we're talking about two quarterbacks that actually started in the FCS ranks, Shedeur being at Jackson State, then also Cam Ward at Incarnate Word. They both transitioned to the FBS level, with Shedeur going to Colorado, and then Cam making his journey from Washington State to Miami. So their how they got her moment is very similar, but stylistically, they couldn't be any different. Shedeur is more of your polished pocket passer that wins with accuracy, ball placement, playing on time at times, and then just being a surgeon from the pocket. But with Cam, he's that guy that has that shortstop-like release that can throw the ball from all those funky arm angles. He can play within structure, but where his gifts are most seen is being able to make those miraculous plays outside of the pocket. But one thing I will say about Cam is that I love his mentality, and that he's always kept that underdog mantra with him, being an under-recruited quarterback, being in a wing T offense to where he was only throwing the ball 10 times a game at best, sometimes not even throwing it 5 to 6 times in a game. So he's kept that underdog mentality. But one thing that he's going to have to learn on the next level is that, and it's the life of a playmaker. So for every 9 or 10 good plays that he makes, he has some 2 or 3 head scratchers within games. And, you can bring up the Cal game, the Virginia Tech game. There's going to be some games of where you're like, man, what the hell was he thinking on some of these plays? And, he gets curious with some plays, and, he's going to have to be paired with a head coach or a position coach that understands how to straddle the line of allowing him to be him as a playmaker, but understanding how to rein him in a little bit at sometimes.
It makes it really interesting with, Tennessee sitting there with the number 1 overall pick and a guy in Brian Callahan who did that with a Joe Burrow, gave him the ability to go out there and use all of his gifts and kind of formed the offense around him. Going to be fascinating to watch. Check him out on Twitter at Jordan_Reid. You can see him doing great work covering the draft, college football over at ESPN. Jordan, excited to see you out in Indianapolis, man. I'm going to need you to show me the ropes as a first timer, all right?
Oh, I got you. I got to record you eating the shrimp cocktail. It's going to be a blast.
There we go. Watch it clear out my sinuses here. Thanks, Jordan. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks.
All right, coming up next, let's whip around the NFL offseason with our buddy over at Yahoo Sports. Nate Tice going to join us next, also from Indianapolis, here on Gojo and Golic. All right, welcome back to Gojo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr. and Jesse Cofield here, rolling along with our coverage of the NFL offseason and Combine going on in Indianapolis. We hand the baton from Jordan Reid to our buddy and Yahoo Sports NFL writer and analyst Nate Tice, kind enough to join us here. Also from Indianapolis, and managed to tuck himself in early last night here. Nate, good morning, man. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Yeah, that's the biggest miracle of this entire week. It's not exactly guys working out, guys clearing medicals, guys having good character. They had a big week. It was me in the middle of the midst of what should have been a big night going, I'm good. I'm going home. I'm responsible. I'm 35. I need to do this. So I'm very proud of myself here in the middle of the week in the middle of Indianapolis.
Exactly. This is about our intestinal fortitude and you putting on right now there. 2.35, a veteran of the process, been around the block here, and so knew better than to get after it too early in the week here. What have you heard so far being out there in Indy? We were just talking with Jordan Reid a little bit about the debate around Travis Hunter and his position and some of the other things. Like, has there been a conversation that you've had multiple times yet already since getting to Indianapolis about any of the prospects in this draft?
It's such a wide open class, and it's not I don't mean that in a bad way, like it's a bad class. I think there's a lot of good prospects as opposed to like, oh yeah, this guy's easily blue chip or elite. And of course there's a couple of those, but I think that's what's made it really fun, is that there's a lack of consensus. And you kind of get to see what people prefer, what people maybe, some of the stigmas they have about certain guys or certain types of guys and archetypes and everything. And it's like, even for me, like I fell into my exact type of archetype stereotype that I like. I was like, oh yeah, Ted McMillan, big receiver. Yes, I love it. Of course I love him. But when I would talk to a lot of people, some of those top guys, say a guy like Will Campbell from LSU is arm length. And it's just kind of funny how it's like, oh, you're waiting for that too? You're waiting for that too? You're waiting for, oh, okay, yeah. Like we're all waiting for the same thing. Or a guy like Will Johnson, cornerback from Michigan. It's like, all right, I've heard that like he has near some, the interviews is a big process for him. Medicals is a big process for him. And also just talking with other people, they're really keen on seeing how he runs because of just his play this year and everything. And he's talented skill-wise, just seeing what kind of athlete he is. But really, it's just a lot of people just going like, who's your QB2? Who's like, yeah. Where do you have this guy stacked? Because everyone's like kind of cautious to show their hands, or in a good or bad way. And it's kind of funny now that as lips get looser, that you start kind of talking to people and getting their true thoughts on the matter. But it's such a wide open class that it's led to a lot more fun conversations than I thought than maybe in previous years, where it was like, oh yeah, this guy's QB1, this guy's QB2, this guy's tackle 1, this guy's tackle 2, and getting kind of like that wide open talk. So really that's more of the buzz, is how wide open it is and how lack of consensus that there is right now.
Huge win for the Tennessee Titans then, holding that number 1 overall pick, them talking yesterday about the openness to trading that. I'd imagine that kind of mystery about what everyone's going to do at those premier positions, because Nate, normally with a team like Tennessee and with Cleveland at the top, 2 very quarterback needy teams, in most years it's an easy, hey, slot the best 2 in, 1 and 2, set it and forget it because the need is so great there. How realistic is it that we have no quarterback go in the top 2 picks? Do you think one of those guys is going before the Browns ultimately leave the podium?
I think Cam Ward ends up being one of those top picks. I just went on a whole thing about lack of consensus, but there is one little consensus, and that's Cam Ward's everybody's QB1. And there's quarterback desperation, obviously. Like, Ward is a good prospect. Is he an elite, no doubter, top 10? Oh my God, take this guy every year. I don't think so, but there's a lot to like, especially if you're a Titans fan or a team that might be interested in him. I think that a quarterback does go early, meaning the top 2 picks. I also think that the Titans are doing a great job of going, there's someone that's generational in this draft. And they're like kind of looking around, kind of go like, want to find out who it is? Like kind of like going like they're making sure they know that like, hey, number 1 pick is, they're not openly saying it's open for sale, but I think they're saying like we want our options open, and they're trying to create as much buzz as possible. And I have kind of been, this is my kind of like little joke to myself, is that the Titans should be trying to convince everybody that Cam Ward is Steve McNair reincarnate, and going like, hey, this is the greatest quarterback we have ever seen in our lives. Don't you guys think? Right? You guys should trade up for him. Because in either way, either they really like him, which is great, and they can move on from Will Levis. I think the Titans have such a choose your adventure this offseason. They could go free agency with a quarterback. They could trade back. They could take a quarterback. They could just take the best player available. They could trade back and take the best player available. So many options are available but I'm just very curious to see how this next month or 2 goes, and seeing how they kind of build up that like, there's not only Cam Ward, there might be another guy that teams are interested in.
I think the quarterback eval is in part influenced by what we've got going on this offseason, which is sort of a weird NFL offseason in terms of the quarterbacks that are available. And we know that's been headlined by the Stafford headlines as of late, the Los Angeles Rams giving him and his camp permission to go and find a trade partner and all that stuff. And we've heard now that $50 million a year number floated out for Stafford as what they want out of their camp. You tell me, as someone that played the position and evaluates it as well as anybody out there in the business right now, is Matthew Stafford, as presently constructed with this Rams team, worth $50 million a year for however many years they decide that?
Are any of us worth $50 million a year, Mike? That's the existential question I want to ask you. No, but it's Stafford. This is my caution with Stafford right now, is that there are some games last year, especially when the Rams got injured, multiple offensive line, receivers, take your pick. It was just they for a while, the first half of the season especially. And I thought he was playing some of the best ball of his career as a thrower. And the thing is Stafford's getting older. He's never been a guy that uses athleticism, but he still throws well on the move. Like, the Rams use bootlegs as much as anybody. But I think my caution, I would say, with Stafford or anyone that wants to try and maybe trade for him, is that it has to have a decent offensive line, or at least a goodish offensive line, just because otherwise this thing could get ugly. If you got nothing to rely on, don't have a run game to rely on. That's something that's been underrated about the Rams the last couple of years. Obviously with the Gurley years, they were great. But again, the last 2 years with Kyron Williams, Golden Domer, and also the Rams offensive line and everything in the run game with Sean McVay, is that run game has been very good. So it was one of those, just like a lot of things in football, especially the NFL, it's hard to parse how much Stafford helps it and how much the system helps. And I know Stafford does a lot because they have found a way to blend it all. And he's still got a live arm. He can still make plays. But is it 1 more year? Is it 2 more years? And I think that's what the Rams are trying to figure out too. Do we want to give him a 3-year deal and be committed? Or do we want to just rip the Band-Aid off and figure it out from there? So it's a hard, I get it. It's a hard decision. But I do think that whoever has Stafford in 2025 at least gets a guy that can play like a top 8 guy. And that's what you need to win a Super Bowl. And you can win a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford in 2025. It's just that ecosystem has to be right, which I know I'm not reinventing the wheel. That's a lot of quarterbacks though, but that's the tier kind of Stafford is in right now.
If not the Los Angeles Rams, which team needs to be working the hardest to pry him out of there and have him play quarterback for them in 2025?
Who the team that kind of keeps coming to my head is actually the Titans that maybe we talked about, but I don't think that would happen. The Vikings thing is very live. I think that's more than just a rumor. But like that was a team that was interesting. Really, the team that I would like to see him with, and I don't know if this will ever happen, is the Steelers, because they have a good young offensive line that I really like. And if they just get Stafford, they can find other ways to add to their receiver room. Pickens, and then they have Roman Wilson. Roman was injured his rookie year for Michigan, but he's more of like a number 3 to me. And they have some decent tight ends, but none of them are kind of like real like needle movers as receivers. And Freiermuth, and even Darnell Washington. I might as well call him. He's the mountain that rides, so might as well call him that. But those guys are more auxiliary guys. But I think if the Steelers, that's one of my fan fiction that I kind of like have gotten around, because it's like, man, they have the means to add to that, and they have a veteran team that can maybe, kind of do some things with that defense. So the Steelers is one I'm kind of keeping my eye on, but that's we'll see.
You mentioned the offensive line that would be protecting Stafford on either of those spots. O-line's going to be another one of those, and I just said this to Jordan. Most teams, maybe outside of the Philadelphia Eagles, you could circle offensive line and say there's some need there going into the offseason. And with Kansas City coming off the Super Bowl, that was the big bit of feedback for them. And with most people, it was with the caveat that they expected Trey Smith to be someone they lose in free agency. I saw reports this morning from Nate Taylor over at The Athletic that there's growing optimism that the Chiefs may actually bring him back on a deal. Where are you at with him being a guy that they should try and continue to make a cornerstone of that team versus let walk and try and reset that foundation again?
I like Trey Smith with the Chiefs. I don't like Trey Smith getting $22-24 million with an offensive line that has no other pieces. Like, Bears fans really wanted him. Patriots fans have talked about him. Any top free agent, they become the prettiest girl at the dance, especially with fans online. But I think he is best with Kansas City, being next to Creed Humphrey. And, Creed does a lot as far as, I think their chemistry on double teams and everything is really good. I also think Creed gets Trey going in the right direction. Trey seems like a guy, I don't know him at all, but he seems like a guy that is an emotional blocker, I think is the way I'll put it. Say he misses a block or he's late on something, that next one, get ready for a little, sawed-off shotgun coming at you. So I think Creed and that system with Andy Heck, the offensive line coach, is really, that's where I like him best. Maybe it's my lack of imagination, but I was getting a little worried if Trey was going to get big money and then going on offensive line that maybe it was shakier. And that's saying something with the Chiefs, but I thought the infrastructure of the Chiefs matters a lot. And having Joe Thuney on that line, Andy Heck, Creed Humphrey, Patrick Mahomes, Jawan Taylor. Yes, is it perfect? They have to figure out the left tackle and all that, but it's like, it's not, it still could be revamped very quickly if they figure out that left tackle spot, which is, easier said than done. But I do think that was the best for him to stay in Kansas City, hypothetically, or in theory, I should say. That it just makes most sense for him, maybe not getting exposed when he has to be the guy, the number one offensive lineman that you become when you get paid $20 million or more. And so I think it's best for everybody. I'm actually kind of glad to see that as kind of a want best for everybody in life kind of guy. So I actually kind of like him staying there or potentially staying there.
All right, well, in sticking with wanting the best for everyone now, I forget where you were at on Anthony Richardson when he was coming out, but Chris Ballard telling reporters on Tuesday that he's going to face competition going into camp this year and that it'll be a battle to see who's the quarterback for the Colts this season. Is that the right move at this juncture with Anthony Richardson?
And even what Ballard was saying, I think what the message is, and I think in talking with some Colts people, that bringing in Flacco, they thought they were bringing in the vet and was going to teach Anthony Richardson. And this is what I by all accounts, Anthony Richardson's a great kid, great person. It's just that being an NFL quarterback and being a franchise quarterback might be something he still hasn't figured out completely. And not just saying on-field stuff, but hey, I'm in here at 4:45 a.m. on a Tuesday. Hey, I'm here at 5 a.m. on a Wednesday. And I'm also staying till 7 or 8 p.m. I'm doing this. I'm doing these extra things that maybe aren't needed when you can run a 4.48 at 250 pounds. but it's the messaging that you're sending when you're the dude, you know? And I think once they got Flacco in there, Flacco's Flacco. He's kind of like, he's his own thing. And I think they kind of realized maybe that's not the messages that they want to get across. So I think that's why they say they want to make this an open competition, because they kind of maybe want to light that fire and go like, hey, yeah, you're the guy, but you got to act like you're battling for your job every single day. I mean, how many of those star quarterbacks are really just star players that Mike, you've been around or just really have seen? And they're the guys that are more talented than anybody, but also working extra more than everybody, doing more film work than anybody. And you're kind of just like, dude, you're getting paid, 18 mil a year, you're fine. But it's like, no, but that's what makes them great. And so I think when they say I was high on Richardson coming out of the draft. I had him over Bryce Young. I had Stroud as 1, Richardson as 2 in that draft. I still have optimism because he's so young. But I think that's what they're trying to send is like, hey, you got to battle for this every day, even if you are the guy, quote unquote. So I think that's what they're really trying to send more than anything. It's like Richardson will beat out whoever they send in. That's what I'll predict right now. But I think they're just trying to show like, hey, yeah, you know what I mean? Like Bauer and them needed this to work. So I think I know who's going to win that competition in August. Yeah. And it's a feather in their cap that if it does work. So it's just it's an interesting thing, but I understand the messaging that they're trying to send to Anthony.
They need a guy like Nate Tice who's going to get to bed early in the week at the Combine to show him the right way to go about this. Check him out, Football 301 over at Yahoo Sports. You can read him there as well. Nate, appreciate it, man. I'll see you in Indy this afternoon, all right?
Thanks for having me, Mike. Yeah, see you soon.
Awesome stuff from Nate Tice. Coming up next, one of the quarterbacks from this year's draft joins us.
Welcome back to Gojo and Golic. Jesse Cofield and Gojo here with you today, no senior, as he is getting his shoulder surgery. So leading into the Combine this week, there's been a ton of talk about the top 2 QBs, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, but a guy who might actually have the most to gain out of this week, could be Jalen Milroe, okay? He's got all the physical gifts of an NFL QB, 6'2", nice, 225 pounds, good arm, good running ability. Maybe we'll measure his hands this week. A good combine could really put his draft stock on the rise. So the guys caught up with Milroe on Radio Row down before the Super Bowl, and we've got the whole interview for you right now.
I try to narrow my focus and just each day just trying to attack each and every day and seize every opportunity to get better. And so I'm in Orange County, California, training, doing draft prep with Mike White and Jordan Palmer. And so we're just trying to pour each and every day to our toolbox, just trying to build, just seizing every opportunity. You know, the best thing about right now is there's no shot clock. Yeah. And so there's so much time you can build as a person on and off the field. And so I've been able to do that out in Orange County. So I think it's so important just being around the right people. And so I'm around the right people when it comes to the support system and also the physical attributes of just trying to improve as well. And so that's helped a lot. And so it's just been a lot of fun during this process.
Yeah, being around the right people, you had a lot of those at Alabama, certainly both as teammates and as coaches. You know, you make that transition from Nick Saban, one of the greatest of all time, to Kalen DeBoer coming in this last year. What did you learn from each of them along the way there that you think is going to help you to jump to the next level?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the standard that you present yourself. When I talk about the standard, it's the standard of excellence that you want to achieve. And so when you're trying to achieve that, you try to separate your mindset into pillars. And so it's short-term goals, long-term goals that you want to accomplish, and trusting the process along that way. And so during my time at school, there's been time where I've been a starter. There's been a time where I wasn't a starter. And so one memory that I have with being not on the field is that you're always getting a rep, mentally and a physical rep. And so during that process, you're always trying to get better. And so when you talk about 1%, want to know the cliche mottos there are in the world, if you're doing that, you're going to improve and get better each and every day on your process. And so Coach DeBoer and Coach Saban, the standard of excellence is always there. The trust in the process, just always trying to improve. You know, the biggest thing that we talk about as a coach is demanding and critiquing and getting the best out of each and every player, and they do that. And so we're just trying to improve and try to get better and just acknowledge that it's a marathon when it comes to being a football player, especially at the quarterback position.
But always being ready when your chance finally comes to know you're ready. So, again, the difference of when you're the quarterback, you're working on game plans every week. You're certainly working on your game individually, but you're working on game plans, the opponent, the defense, and all that. Now it is solely you. It is solely working on you. What have you learned about your game while you've been working on just you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think to answer your question, I think this is such an important phase of my life as far as trying to be the best version of myself so that I'm able to lead properly. I'm able to step into whatever organization I'm blessed to be a part of with my best foot forward. And so right now in California, it's big just to be around Jordan Palmer and Mike. We're just refreshing and just trying to improve. And so one thing that we're just trying to do is being efficient in everything that we do as a passer. Being able to make each and every throw when it comes to on platform, off platform, being aligned to our target, strengthening all areas of our body as far as being a passer to football. And so one thing that's unique about playing quarterback, there's so much that you can still pour into your game. And one firsthand experience is watching greats in the NFL that played a long career in the league and just seeing that they had an opportunity to keep on getting better. And so one thing that I just committed to is that the day that I retire from football is the day I stop learning when it comes to playing the game. Until then, there's so much things I can still pour into the game and try to learn as much as possible. And so like you mentioned, like this is a unique time because this is the only time you can really pour into yourself, invest in yourself, and try to be the best version of yourself.
And this is a process in investing in yourself. You're also trusting this process that you're on right now. Mobile, the Senior Bowl, big step for everyone, especially for you guys with less time coming off the season than ever before here. What was the feedback you got in talking to and being around NFL coaches, NFL personnel that week?
You know, stepping in and going into that week, it's all about being coachable because there's so much knowledge that was on the field and in the film room when it comes to being a player. And so I was just soaking up all the information I was able to have because they have the knowledge base that we haven't had as players as far as being in the NFL. This is a new process for us. And so number one was stepping up and being coachable. Number two was learning and growing on the field. And lastly, having exposure to the NFL environment, because at the end of the day, the guys that we're competing with are going to be on opposite ends or maybe on the same sideline when it comes to being in the NFL. So that only betters us as players, being around great players. And so I had a first-hand experience of that being in Alabama, being in the best of the best around the whole entire country. And so I can definitely say it was a great experience and something that I'm definitely appreciative of.
Describe that environment to people that have never been in there, because so many people have looked at Alabama from the outside and what you guys and that team have been for so long. Describe the competitive environment with the kind of guys you have in that locker room and what that's like and how it pushes you.
No, absolutely. I think the best thing about Alabama is the standard that we present for everybody in the building. You know, you have freshmen holding seniors accountable, vice versa, seniors holding freshmen accountable. It's just the accountability piece, the discipline, the effort, the commitment piece, the amount of pride we play in. That's what separates us from other programs, that standard that we have for each other. And so, you know, for me, I coming in just seeing the veterans that stepped up and just were able to achieve a lot of great things.
When Nick was the coach, you ever go to bed at night go and say, man, I can't play for this guy?
Yeah, was there like a welcome to Nick Saban moment that you had coming on campus?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I'll never forget, I stepped on the campus, and when I stepped on the campus, the season before they won the national championship. So I enrolled after the 2020 national championship. Yep. And us as a mid-year enrollees, we're excited. Like, man, it was like, we're like, okay, like we're stepping into a program that just won a national championship. We're going to be around a lot of great guys, like dudes that have a lot of talent. And so us as enrollees, we come in and we had our first meeting with Coach Saban, and we're excited. Like, we're ready for him to get in. Like, we're just smiling. And he walks in. He said, let me get this thing straight. Y'all didn't do nothing about our team last year. Y'all had nothing to do with that. Y'all going to have to prove each and every day that y'all are capable of winning a national championship.
Okay, put in my place.
Man, for real? You know, my welcome to college moment with Coach.
So while there are great quarterbacks, there are no perfect quarterbacks. So what does Jordan and Mike have you working on the most to improve upon?
Yeah, for sure. I think getting my body in the best position to make every pass possible on the football field, and it all focuses on alignment. The alignment to your target. That's number one, but also putting your body in the best position to make an efficient throw, and just distributing your body properly when it comes to lower mechanics of throwing the football, because some quarterbacks are upper body dominant, some quarterbacks have a delay when they throw the ball, and so all us as quarterbacks throw differently. And so it's not about replicating another quarterback representing somebody else. It's all about what makes you unique in your own way. And so being able to put a deep down analysis of what exactly that we need to do as a passer of the football. And so, like I mentioned, like, there's no shot clock. So we just pouring each and every day to try to get better. And I definitely can say I got better.
Does it get frustrating getting ready to go through this process, hearing people bring up stuff like hand size and measurements and things like that going out now when you've got all this tape, you've got all this stuff, you're talking about ability there? Does that part of the process get frustrating for you at all?
I can throw the damn ball. So.
See? Funny how that works out, right? It's gotten you this far, can throw the damn ball. And you know what? You can throw the damn ball. You're also out here representing Auto Trader this week. So what can you tell us about what you got going on with these guys?
No, absolutely. So I had a experience of going through a phase of trying to purchase a vehicle. And it's definitely a stressful process, trying to find a perfect price, find the car they exactly want. And so I was able to use Auto Trader, easy access. I was able to go through there, find the car that I wanted, and I was able to purchase a vehicle last spring. And so I have experience of using Auto Trader.
What'd you go with?
I went with a Porsche Panamera.
Ooh, okay.
See, at all my years of playing and at my age, I have trouble getting down into a car, as opposed to up into a car. But then that's a sweet ride.
I appreciate now that in the day and age of name, image, and likeness, we are getting college players that come into the NFL know how to spend the money the right way on the right things here. So, Jalen, congrats on an incredible career, man. You've been a ton of fun to watch all the way. You can throw the damn ball, and we're excited to watch you get the chance to do it on Sundays here real soon.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
Thanks, absolutely. Man. Thanks, Jalen. All right, let's finish things off the way we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send you into the rest of the day. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us. Leave us a 5-star rating. Check us out Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. Subscribe and hit the bell on the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast feed as well. Again, housekeeping for the next couple of days. I'm going to be at the Combine. Dad's going to be recovering from shoulder surgery, so we won't be live, but check out the podcast feeds. We'll have some updates from Indianapolis, see if I can drag a few friends into the mix, but at the very least, give you guys a little bit of the eyes and ears on the ground at the NFL Scouting Combine for this year's class. So, again, check that out. Thank you to our guests from today, Jessica Smetana from the Dan Le Batard Show in Hour 1, and Jordan Reid, ESPN NFL analyst and NFL draft analyst, along with Yahoo Sports NFL analyst Nate Tice for joining us in Hour number 2. A re-air of our Jalen Milroe interview from the NFL lead up to the Super Bowl. All of that available wherever you get the pod or right here as soon as we get done on YouTube. Jesse, let's get to this, that, and the third. Jesus Christ, I can't believe we're back here. After multiple lawsuits and a prison sentence, along with 2 documentaries, disgraced Firefest founder Billy McFarland is back out here talking. This time about Firefest 2, although missed opportunity not calling it 2 Fire, 2 Festival. The Revive Music Festival is set to take place from May 30th to June 2nd on Isla Mujeres in Quintana Roo, Mexico. This year's festival will be capped at 2,000 attendees, significantly fewer than the 5,000 estimated festival goers that last time on Dragon Ball Z were a part of the disaster in 2017 that ultimately led to one of the most unique spectacles we've ever seen, a bunch of morons getting taken advantage of, and McFarland going to prison for 6 years. He is apparently not going to be in an operational role this time around. And Jesse, the festival is not just music. They haven't released any artist name, but Billy McFarland, very trustworthy, assures you it's an A-list group. According to the website, it's also going to include water adventures, extreme sports, leisure, wellness, and cultural and creative activities. So can we count on your support and interest in Firefest Part 2, Jesse?
Absolutely not, because for me personally, music festivals sound like I'd rather go to Club Fed. I'd rather go to prison than go to a music festival. But I want to point out something that you said. No artists have been confirmed. He claims he expects to book A-list performers in the coming months. So he hasn't just not announced them. They haven't booked any. So they're selling tickets for an event a music festival in which they have no musical acts. So to me, Gojo, this sounds like exactly what it was before. We got a bunch of smoke and there's nothing going on behind it all. So I don't know what's gonna happen here, but if you're an artist, would you want to go play this and be part of Fyre Fest 2? I'm sure there's people who will buy tickets just because of the lore. You know what I mean?
Oh, and Jesse, the tickets you can buy range from $1,400 to $1.1 million, depending on the package. If you give this man $1.1 million, you should be drug tested the next day. This is the most classic case of the scorpion and the frog, where this man, I understand we all hope reform is a part of the process, does not appear to have changed his thought process if immediately after leaving prison is like, you know what? We should do it again. And if you want to be one of those dumbasses that winds up stranded at an airport eating the saddest ham and cheese sandwich on earth, please feel free. I'm bored and could use more content in the offseason. And the documentary for Fyre Fest Part 2, I will absolutely watch again. Would never in a million years give this man money for an experience that sounds like it is destined to overpromise and hilariously underdeliver. So God help and keep anyone that wants to get involved in that situation. Jesse, what do we have for that here on the show?
Yes, there's hope for all the men who like to comment on celebrities' Instagrams, especially women underneath telling them they're hot and they'd like to take them on a date. Sydney Sweeney has postponed her wedding, okay? So she has been engaged to Jonathan Davino for 3 years. They've been dating for a really long time. Apparently they were supposed to get married in May, and the big day has now been pushed to an unknown date. Now, according to TMZ, the wedding's been postponed because of the couple's busy schedule. However, the couple is still together. I don't know about you, Gojo, but to me, this is screaming, I'm not sure if I want to marry you.
And everyone's going to assume that that is coming from the Sydney Sweeney side, understandably, given the, what we view as massive imbalance of both fame and hotness in this relationship here. The stadium pulse has to be going crazy for that guy, right? Like every day more nervous than the last when you thought, all right, I'm just running out the clock until we get to this. I'm going to go ahead and marry this woman. It's going to be awesome. I have the woman that is the apple of the eye of everyone, especially God's horniest internet. I don't know, Jesse, how do you see this one? It seems like this is the kind of smoke where eventually we just quietly never hear this guy's name spoken of again and then stop seeing rings in any pictures. And all of a sudden, to your point, reply guys come back with renewed vigor.
That's how I feel about it, because I totally understand. She's talked about it before. She's a workaholic. She loves working. She understands that in Hollywood, you got to strike while the iron's hot. Iron is hot for her right now. I think she's just not saying no to any projects. But if you want to get married, you find the time. Like, I'm sorry, but you can carve out 4 days in your schedule to have all your family and friends. Like, come on. You can make that happen if you want to. So there's definitely more to this story than just like scheduling conflicts. Also, if you're planning a wedding and it was supposed to be in May, I mean, we don't know when they made this decision, but like, you gotta sign vendor contracts. There's like money that's being lost, presumably, if this was a decision that was made recently. So I feel like you're exactly right. We're headed for breakup city here.
Yep, it's going to be a lot of people meticulously checking mirrored images for which fingers got what on it, and it's just not going to be a great time for anyone involved here. To quote the great Holly Anderson over at Channel 6, they wanted to, so they did, is a good reminder for everyone in life. If they really want to, they will. And that's why I think your point is well served, Jesse, that if you wanted to just go ahead and be married, my brothers and sisters in Christ, they'd be married right now, and there's a reason they're not. I wish them well. I want love to win for everybody here. Want it to live for these crazy kids. I don't really know the other guy at all here, and I've just seen Sydney Sweeney in the movie, so we'll see what happens for all of them. But why don't we finish it off with peak nostalgia for the third and for us as elder millennials?
Well, for the record, not to age gap shame, but it's not these two crazy kids because he's 41. But there is a Harry Potter series that is going to come out on HBO, which personally I cannot wait for. And it's just been announced that John Lithgow is going to play Dumbledore. So Harry Potter TV show, currently targeting a release late 2026, early 2027. They're going to begin filming episodes. I am foaming at the mouth for this because so much got left out of the movies because of the sheer breadth of the books and everything that they had. They had to cut out certain storylines. Like, here is our opportunity to get everything we want and more. It could be a little darker because it's HBO, you know what I mean? Maybe we'll see a little more, like, other than these chaste kisses that we saw on screen in the movies. I don't know, maybe they'll get a little freaky, these witches and wizards.
I mean, yeah, listen, I mean, that's what the fan fiction crowd has been rolling with for a while. I did not realize, I have some friends that are in that community, how robust the Harry Potter, especially romantic fan fiction communities are. So maybe they will scratch that itch for some people. Listen, it's tough because J.K. Rowling has generally shown herself to be a person who I don't want to support in most ways. The problem is the product that she created a long time ago, and that at this point feels like it has a life of its own and means so many things to a bunch of different people, that I'm with you. I am going to ravenously consume this content. The same way on Amazon, when they get, and there is just something about sci-fi tangent stuff that is always going to get me going. And Rings of Power on Amazon, couldn't get enough of it. Foaming feral for season 3 of that to finally come out and give me more of a franchise that meant a lot to me in my childhood and has continued into adulthood. And for Harry Potter, it was the same. We had the books as kids. We had the movies as young adults into our in adult years. And now they're going to give us this TV show on premium cable at a point where we're all sitting around at 35 just waiting for this stuff to happen. Yeah, sign me the hell up on that. Getting actual Dumbledore back in the mix. Who pointed out I'm going to be 87 when we do the rap party for this. Oh, you know what? We appreciate your sacrifices to the cause here and look forward to it. Best of luck to the Bionic Man and the Winter Soldier, my dad, who hopefully at this point in time is going to be getting closer and closer to being seated comfortably and outpatient with a brand new shoulder. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.